1899, Nikola Tesla sat alone in his Colorado Springs laboratory. The air smelled of ozone. Great arcs of electricity snapped across copper coils, painting the room in violet fire. But Tesla's mind was not on his machines. He was listening. His instruments had caught something. Faint, repeating pulses. Not random noise, not thunder. Something patterned. Something alien. Tesla wrote that he believed he had intercepted a signal from another world. Newspapers ridiculed him. Scientists called him a dreamer. But Tesla was convinced the cosmos had spoken. Decades later, others began to hear it too. By the 1920s, radio operators across Europe started reporting long-delayed echoes. They would send a signal into space, and seconds later, minutes later even, it came back. Not from Earth, not from the moon. As if something vast and invisible had caught their words, repeated them, and sent them home. The echoes didn't obey natural laws. They were too long, too structured. Something was out there, and it was listening. For years, the mystery haunted science. Some said it was the ionosphere, bouncing signals in strange ways. Others muttered about Soviet experiments, but whispers grew darker. What if there was something in orbit? A machine, a watcher, not human. And then, in 1977, the cosmos screamed again. At the Big Ear Radio Observatory in Ohio, astronomers scanned the night sky. Suddenly, a powerful signal exploded across the receivers. Louder, stronger, clearer than anything before. It lasted 72 seconds. A single voice in the static. Jerry Amon, the man who discovered it, circled the data and wrote one word in the margin. Wow. The wow. Signal never returned. It has never been explained. But for those 72 seconds, humanity may have heard its first alien hello. History, it seemed, was leaving breadcrumbs. Tesla's signals. The echoes of the 1920s. The wow signal. Each strange, each denied, each quickly forgotten, but all pointing to the same possibility. The stars are not silent. And then came the shadow of 1991. Astronomers detected a small tumbling object near Earth, designated 1991 VG. It was unlike any asteroid they had ever seen. It reflected sunlight like polished metal. Its orbit was unstable, unpredictable. Some thought it might be a piece of lost space junk, but calculations showed no human rocket matched it. Others whispered, an alien probe, drifting silently, circling back to check on us. But 1991 VG was too small, too fleeting. It vanished into the dark, leaving nothing but rumors. And so, for decades, these mysteries piled up. Strange signals, echoes, objects that didn't belong, always seen, always dismissed. Like warnings scribbled in the margins of history, until October 19, 2017. At the Pan-STARRS Observatory in Hawaii, astronomers spotted something moving against the stars. At first, they thought it was an asteroid, but the orbit was wrong. It wasn't looping around the sun. It was slicing through the solar system at incredible speed, a visitor from beyond. They named it Oumuamua. In Hawaiian, it means scout or messenger. The name was chosen carefully. The first photographs shocked scientists. Oumuamua was long, 10 times longer than it was wide. No asteroid had ever been shaped like it. Some called it cigar-like. Others thought it resembled a shard of alien technology, fractured and tumbling. Telescopes followed it obsessively. They tracked its light curves, its strange spin, its flashes of reflected sunlight. Oumuamua didn't move like a rock. It moved like something broken, something made. But the most haunting discovery came later. As it left the solar system, Oumuamua sped up. It accelerated. Not because of gravity. Not because of a comet's tail. It had no jets, no gas, no visible propulsion. Yet it moved faster. Something had whispered, "Go." Scientists rushed for explanations. Some said it was a comet venting invisible gases. Others argued it was a fragment of a shattered planet. But none of the models worked. Oumuamua was too thin, too light, too fast. And then Avi Loeb, a Harvard astronomer, dared to say what others would not. He argued that Oumuamua might be artificial, a probe, a light sail pushed by starlight itself, a technology humanity had only begun to dream of, but someone else had mastered long ago. The establishment scoffed. They laughed at Loeb. But his calculations stood. The acceleration matched the pressure of sunlight on a thin sail. Oumuamua behaved not like an asteroid, but like a craft. If he was right, then 2017 was the year Earth was scouted. Not with a signal, not with a whisper, but with a shadow that crossed the stars and passed silently by. And the scariest part? Oumuamua may not have come by chance. Its path traced back toward Vega, in the constellation Lyra, a star wrapped in myths, in stories of gods and travelers. Had this object been sent? Had it been aimed? The echoes of Tesla, the signals of the 1920s, the wow signal, the strange orbit of 1991 VG, all threads in a tapestry. And Oumuamua was the darkest thread yet. As it tumbled past Earth, astronomers watched in awe. It showed no message, no signal, no intent, only silence. But silence can be a message. Silence can mean patience. Perhaps it came to observe. Perhaps it came to judge. Or perhaps it came to remind us that the universe is not empty, and never was. Oumuamua was not the first whisper, but it was the loudest. And when it left, accelerating into the dark, it left humanity with a question that has no answer. If this was the scout, what comes after? October 19th, 2017. On the volcanic slopes of Haleakala in Hawaii, the Pan-STARRS telescope scanned the night sky. Among thousands of moving dots, one object stood out. At first, astronomers thought it was a faint asteroid, but its orbit was wrong. It was not looping gently around the sun like countless other rocks. It was cutting straight through the solar system, fast, too fast. Within days, the discovery exploded across observatories worldwide. The object was confirmed. The first interstellar visitor ever seen by humankind. A traveler from another star system, wandering into ours. It was named Oumuamua, Scout, Messenger. At first, the excitement was pure science. A once-in-history chance to study a piece of another world. But as data accumulated, the excitement turned to dread. Oumuamua was like nothing ever cataloged. It was long, 10 times longer than it was wide. A cigar tumbling silently in the dark. No asteroid had such proportions. No comet spun like that. The more they measured, the less sense it made. It spun erratically, flashing sunlight in unpredictable bursts. Its light curve suggested flat, razor-like surfaces, almost metallic in their reflection. Some thought it resembled a fragment of something broken, not born of chaos, but of craft. And then came the most haunting detail. As it passed the sun and began to exit, it should have slowed. Gravity dictates it. That is the law of the cosmos. Instead, Oumuamua accelerated. No comet tail was visible, no jets of gas, nothing to push it. And yet, it sped up. Theories unraveled. The invisible comet explanation was stretched to its breaking point. Some astronomers argued it was shedding gas too faint to detect. But if so, where were the chemical signatures? Where were the trails? None were found. Others claimed it was a chunk of hydrogen ice, venting invisible plumes. But hydrogen would never have survived the journey through interstellar space. Again, the math failed. Meanwhile, a quiet panic grew. This was not supposed to happen. Space rocks obeyed the laws of gravity. They did not accelerate without cause, unless they were not rocks. As the debate raged, the object tumbled onward. Astronomers measured its path with desperate precision. Each number made the mystery deeper, and yet the world outside of science barely noticed. News articles came and went. Some called it a cigar asteroid, others a strange comet. The true implications were buried under technical jargon and scientific caution. But among the astronomers who studied it, unease grew into fear, because this was not the first time something like it had brushed past. In 1991, a small object called 1991 VG had danced near Earth in a strained orbit, reflecting light like polished steel. It too was dismissed, and before that, in 1908, the Tunguska blast had flattened forests in Siberia without leaving a crater, as though something had exploded in the air. Theories spoke of comets and asteroids, but none ever truly fit. What if these events were not separate? What if they were connected? Echoes of the same story, fragments of the same hidden truth. Oumuamua was not simply an interstellar rock. It was part of a lineage of anomalies that stretched back through history. The whispers Tesla heard in 1899. The echoes radio operators captured in the 1920s. The 72-second scream of the wow signal in 1977. The metallic flash of 1991 VG. The fire over Tunguska. Each event dismissed. Each one explained away. And yet now, the pattern returned, undeniable, in the form of a traveler from beyond. And then Avi Loeb, a Harvard astronomer, put into words what others feared to say. Oumuamua might not be natural at all. Perhaps it was artificial. Perhaps it was a probe, a messenger, a fragment of alien engineering. Loeb's theory was met with laughter. Journalists mocked him. His colleagues rolled their eyes. But his calculations did not lie. The object's acceleration matched what would happen if sunlight were pushing against a thin, flat surface, like a solar sail. A technology humanity had only begun to imagine. The possibility was terrifying. If it was a sail, then it was not drifting randomly. It was navigating. It was built. And if it was built, then somewhere, someone had built it. And what was its mission? To observe, to measure, to warn. Some imagined it as a scout, others as a relic, an ancient shard drifting from a dead civilization, still obeying commands written long ago. But there was another theory, whispered quietly. It might not have been meant to be seen at all. Its discovery was an accident, a cosmic mistake. If true, then humanity had caught a glimpse of something it was never supposed to notice. Oumuamua drifted outward, past the orbit of Jupiter, then Saturn. Each day it grew fainter, until telescopes could no longer track it. It left us with no answers, only questions. But the silence was not comforting, because if Oumuamua was a scout, then its message may already have been sent. Somewhere, across the endless night, a signal could be racing back to its creators. Earth is here. Life is here. And if that was true, then what comes next will not be a whisper. It will be an arrival. Harvard's Avi Loeb had crossed a line. By suggesting that Oumuamua might be artificial, he cracked the wall of silence around the scientific community. Some mocked him. Others called him reckless. But his theory touched a nerve, because deep down, many suspected the same thing. They just dared not say it aloud. Loeb argued that Oumuamua could be a solar sail, a technology built to drift on starlight, ultra-thin, lightweight, capable of crossing galaxies without fuel. A concept humanity had dreamed of, but never mastered. If true, this was not a rock, it was a craft. And that raised a darker question. Why was it here? Some saw it as a scout, sent to observe, to measure, to note that life existed on Earth. If so, then its purpose may already be complete. A signal could already be streaking back across the stars. They are here. Others believed it was older, much older, perhaps a relic of a civilization long gone, a fragment of technology, still following instructions written eons ago, silent, tumbling, yet still alive in its own way. But the darkest interpretations whispered of something else, a weapon, not active yet, a dormant machine drifting until triggered. If true, then what awakens it? Our telescopes? Our radar? Our curiosity? History's warnings seem to echo. The Tunguska blast in 1908 flattened forests without leaving a crater, as though something had detonated above the ground. Officially, it was a comet or asteroid, but no debris was ever found. Could Tunguska have been another visitor, one that didn't survive re-entry, a fragment of something like Oumuamua? And then there were the shadows closer to Earth. In the 1950s, the U.S. Air Force detected dark objects in orbit before Sputnik was ever launched. The legend of the Black Knight satellite was born. An unknown body said to circle Earth in polar orbit, appearing and vanishing without explanation. NASA dismissed it as space debris. But the myth persisted. Was it a sentinel watching us long before we reached for the stars? Even Apollo astronauts reported strange encounters. Some whispered of lights trailing their capsules, objects hovering silently on the lunar horizon. NASA never confirmed. Transcripts were censored, but the rumors never died. And now, Oumuamua joined this lineage. The Black Knight, Tunguska, Apollo anomalies, each denied, each dismissed. But together, they formed a pattern, a shadow that stretched across centuries. If Oumuamua was artificial, then we had been noticed long before 2017. The scout was not the beginning. It was the continuation. And still its silence was unnerving. It sent no message, no signal, no code. It simply passed by. But silence can be louder than sound. Silence can mean patience. Perhaps it was waiting. As Oumuamua drifted into the void, invisible to our telescopes, humanity was left with a question too dangerous to answer. What if we were never meant to see it? By the time Oumuamua vanished beyond the reach of our telescopes, it had already become legend. For the public, it was just another weird rock. For scientists, it was a puzzle they could not solve. But for those who dared to think deeper, it was something more. A message, a warning, a reminder that humanity's story is being watched, because Oumuamua was not alone. In 2019, a second interstellar visitor appeared, 2I Borisov. Unlike Oumuamua, Borisov looked like a typical comet with a glowing tail of ice and gas. Its presence confirmed the terrifying truth. Objects do come from the stars. They are not rare. The galaxy is alive with travelers. And so the question deepened. If Borisov was natural, what was Oumuamua? Could one be stone, the other steel? Could one be driftwood, and the other a carved spear? Some theorists began to speak of a cosmic zoo, that we are not alone, but confined, watched by civilizations older than we can imagine, allowed to grow, but never to wander too far. Perhaps Oumuamua was not a messenger, but a warden, a silent reminder that eyes are always upon us. Others argued the opposite, that it was a relic, a shard from a civilization long dead. If true, then humanity had brushed against a ghost, a fragment of memory, drifting eternally through the dark. Proof that even great empires fall, but both possibilities carry the same weight. We are not the first. We will not be the last. Avi Loeb urged that ignoring Oumuamua was dangerous. If it is a probe, he said, its creators now know we exist. His words rang like a prophecy. Because in silence there is no comfort, only the waiting for an answer. And perhaps that is the legacy of Oumuamua. Not its tumbling path, not its strange acceleration, but the way it cracked open the door of possibility. The way it forced us to look up and ask the question we fear the most. Not are we alone, but what happens when they return? Because if Oumuamua was a scout, then somewhere out there, the fleet it scouts for still waits. And perhaps one day, the stars will no longer whisper. They will roar. Until then, we are left with the silence of the cosmos. Silence that feels less like absence and more like patience. The scout is past. The sky is quiet again. But the quiet is heavy, loaded, expectant. And as the earth spins under a star-filled sky, the question lingers like a shadow. We saw the scout. The only question now is, what comes next?